when it comes to doing the house station, you want to be really careful about timing. There are a couple different, the first two rooms that you're going to take the guests into don't require a whole lot of time. Just a little bit of explaining, asking a few questions, because the last room that you're entering, the kitchen, really does take the most time. So know that you have 10 minutes, so try to spend like maybe 3 minutes on the first two rooms so that you have that's 6 minutes, so that you have a good 4 to 5 minutes in the kitchen to take in everything there. So this is the farmhouse. So what I like to do is I like to have all the kids gather around here, and I say, all right kids, you guys have rules in your house, right? And they say yes, of course, like no running, not talking really loudly, sometimes you take off your shoes. Well, we have some rules for our house too. You don't have to take your shoes off before you come inside, but we ask you to be very respectful of our old house. You can tell them that this house was built sometime in the 1750s, so it's really, really old. So, and what I like to do is I like to have them look at their feet. So I say, look down at your feet for a second. And I say, every footstep that you take in this house is a footstep that somebody took hundreds of years ago. And they had, family and friends, and they had their own issues and concerns, and you are going to be walking in their footsteps. So it's a really cool experience. When they're in this house, they're going to see some things that are familiar to them, not so familiar. Be making observations as you walk through this house. Put yourself in the shoes of a historian maybe too. Think about, why would somebody use this? How would they make this? These are good things to have kids think about while they walk through. So what I also like to say is we have a lot of items in here that are fragile. If they're young, you could say, does anyone know what fragile means? And odds are they know. And if they don't know, you could say it's things that break easily. So we are inviting you as guests into our home, and we're really excited to do it, but we do have to ask you to please be very careful with all the objects that are inside. Please no running, no screaming, just so that everyone can hear the tour guide. Finally, if it looks hot inside the house, it is hot. If it looks sharp, it's sharp. It's kind of like the rules that we go over in the beginning. And then you can invite them all in. So you can begin by talking about the front parlor as a place where they would have been entertaining their guests. They would have been using it almost kind of as your living room, where you serve tea, where you're doing important work like this, and where you have a bed. Sometimes what I like to say very first before anything is, what room do you think this is? And then they usually say a bedroom, and I'm like, well, why do you say that? And then they point out the bed. But this room, as is the case for all the rooms in the house, it's used for multiple purposes. So you can talk about all the different kinds of activities that they would have been doing, like inviting guests over to have tea. Americans loved having tea during this time. They would have been writing letters over here. They might have been playing games, and we have a few books over here that describe different games that are going on, like dice too. And you can also talk to them about how this room is you putting your best foot forward as a middle to upper middle class farmer in New England. So you can point out the china and the tinware and the glassware, etc., that you have in the house to demonstrate that you're not poor, that you've got, decent amount of good stuff. If you want, have them notice the window panes and how some of them look a little wavy, and that those are historic glass. It's a little bit older than some of the other paints. So that's that. Another thing you can talk about is that our house, because it's historic, is kind of sinking. So you could say, don't worry, they didn't build these doors like this originally. They weren't looking to live in a topsy-turvy house on purpose. So this house is settling, and it was built to do that. It was built to do that without having a lot of damage to the foundation or any other parts of it. It's gonna get cracks in it. They're gonna notice cracks and things like that. But the house, for the most part, is pretty sturdy. So you can, you can tell them if I put a marble on the floor, it would roll right along, which is kind of interesting. Now we're in the back parlor. You just left the front parlor. Now you're in the back parlor. And this is your clean workroom. This is the room where you're doing clean work like mending, sewing, and spinning, and carding. So carding wool is something that's very commonly done by New England farmers during our time period. However, we are on the cusp of the Industrial Revolution, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the blacksmith shop. But this is kind of pre-industrial, when you're still doing a lot of stuff with your hands. So this is something that carding is what we do with the groups a little bit. We do it either in here or outside. We might hook it into the animal section, just depending. So just be ready to hear whatever your supervisor wants to do for the day. So here's how you do it. You demonstrate that the way that you card is that you take one side, one paddle, and you put it like this, and you take the other one, you put it like that, so that they can see that the handles are facing opposite ways. Caution them also that these are really super sharp, so that they need to be very careful with them. Next, you're going to want to make sure there's plenty of wool in each card. There will be a basket of wool provided so that you can refill if you need to. And then you show them carding, which is basically brushing it pretty gently, almost like it's like your pet cat. And so if they're having a little bit of difficulty, tell them to go a little bit more gently. If they're still having difficulty, kind of like I am, it probably means they need a little more wool. So I'll add just a little bit more to this one. And you can have them doing it like this. You're probably going to have groups that are pretty big. So, and as these guys will demonstrate, you're probably going to be having everybody get into pairs. So these guys are a pair. They are a team. So one of them is going to take one card, and one of them will take the other, and they will practice doing it. So just really super gentle. And you can tell them that this is the step that's really super important right before you begin to spin it, because what carding does is it makes, and you guys can actually just stop just for a sec. What this does is it makes all of those fibers move in the same direction, and you want that for spinning, because if you don't do that, then it's just a big clump and it doesn't spin well. So these guys did a good job demonstrating. So you can say good job. Now, there may be times where you have a pretty big group with you. There might not be enough cards for all the pairs that you create. So the other kids can be doing wool picking. So this is what they can do while they're waiting for, another pair to have a turn at carding. So what you do is you give them a handful of wool, and you have them kind of spread it apart a little bit, nice and gently, and you reveal all the little bits of like hay and other stuff that's in there, and you have them just drop it and see how much they can pick out. That you can tell them that this is one of the most important steps, because when you're spinning wool, you don't want to have, a little leaf caught in there, so you have, a yucky spot on your coat or something like that. You want it to be super clean. So this wool has been obviously sheared from the sheep and washed and dried. Most of it is picked, but you can like find wool that still has some little bits in it and have them pick out what's left. So that's nice and clean. So that's pretty good for in here. So this is your kitchen. You want all your kids to enter from the back parlor and move around the table. You're going to want to put chairs. The table's going to be pulled back, maybe with Mo on it. You're going to want to make sure the chairs are right here so that no kids are tempted to go near the fire. This has not been a problem really in the past because we've done it this way, so just make sure that the kids are a pretty safe distance away. Now this is the room where a lot of pieces of their tour are brought together, so you may decide to make more time for this room. This is the room where you can talk about food waste. So what are we cooking in here? What are we using to do it? How we usually like to begin is by talking about the different features of our kitchen that are different from their own at home. So I usually point out our 18th century stovetop, which is our hearth. You have a fire going in there, and you will have a fire going for the school group. There will probably be something cooking on there. If you are in a tour where you are the house person, you will be stationed here, and you will be in charge of ringing the bell every 10 minutes. You'll have a timer set for 10 minutes, and you will be opening the window and ringing the bell to signal that everybody should move around. You might also be making Johnny cakes in here. So if you are that person, then you will be doing all of the speaking about the kitchen most likely, and the tour guide from the group will probably just stand next to you and add a couple of little points here and there. But you can tell them what you're making and how you're making it, all that kind of thing. And just keep an eye on the clock if you're keeping time. If it is a group where there isn't a set house person and you're just coming in here to interpret, you'll talk about your stovetop, which is your hearth, your beehive oven. You can have them look inside and see how dark it is on the walls. Tell them that when the color of that soot turns white, it turns to ash, then that means that your oven is hot enough. You're taking fire from in here, you're building another one in here, and that's where the heat's coming from. So you can tell them that when it changes color on the walls, that's when it's time to pull out your embers or whatever fire you have going in there with your tool called the rooker. This rooker should always be stationed right here so that you can demonstrate this. Then you pull out whatever's in there, probably are putting it into a pot like this, and then it's ready to bake. And you're gonna be baking usually 1 day a week, breads and pies, all that kind of thing. Baked beans when you get towards the end of the day and there's not a whole lot of heat left in there. You can leave baked beans in there all night long and they'll cook on slow heat, which is kind of cool. Now that you've gotten done talking about some of the cooking stuff that happens, you can begin talking about the rest of the room. Every kitchen needs a sink to wash your hands or do your dishes. So you can ask, where do you think that is? This invites the kids to look around a little bit and interact with their environment, which beforehand has probably been a little bit like, wow, super overwhelming. So this is a chance for them to get a little bit up close and personal. So they will probably walk a little bit over this way. You can give them hints, but this is where your sink is. You have your hot water faucet in that big cauldron over there that's hanging over your fire, and you have your cold water faucet over here. You can talk about the fact that when you're doing your dishes or when you're washing anything, for that matter, when you're doing laundry, you need to get your water from somewhere. So you ask them, where do you think you get it? And they usually say well or something like that. You can point out the window and say, when you guys are on your way out, take a look across the street at the 2 buildings that are down there. The one with the stone top on it is our spring house where we get our water. So you'd be taking your yoke and buckets, just like this, and you can put this thing on or not. You probably have a pretty big crowd in here, so odds are you might not be able to get them to wear this during the tour, but you can wear it and say you would have had to carry a lot of buckets on your shoulders to get up to this house. You can ask them how many buckets they think they would have needed, and you keep in mind they would have needed water for cooking and cleaning and all kinds of stuff, and for your animals. So odds are these families would have been moving like up to 50 to 60 buckets of water a day from their well. So it's a lot. So you can tell them to appreciate those long showers that they can take. And finally, you can have them take a peek in here, or you can pull some items out of here so that they can see them. We like to ask kids what they think certain objects are, and this one always kind of stumps them a little bit. Sometimes they surprise you though. So this guy is a toaster, and this is one we really like to show the kids because we say, all right, I'm about to show you something that all of you probably have on your countertop right now. But I don't have to plug mine in. It's a little bit different. So you can give them a hint about what it is. Hold it up, be like, what should I do with it? What do you think? Have them really try to guess. So a lot of kids say napkin holder. A lot of kids, they say you use it for laundry, but it is a toaster. And then you say, okay, we've established that it's a toaster. Now, how do I use it? So, you're putting the bread in here and you're putting it by the fire, just like this. And that's how you toast it. So when we are